Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 13th episode of Stories of Service, Ordinary People Who Do Extraordinary Work. And I am the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter. And welcome, and thank you for joining us today on a Saturday evening. Now, I will let you know it is raining pretty hard here in Norfolk, Virginia. So if we lose power, which I don't think we will, just know that we will come right back to you. But without further ado, I want to introduce my very special guests because I always have very special and amazing guests. And today I have Navy Lieutenant Meagan Morrison. Now, Meagan Morrison is a naval officer and she's currently stationed in Guam. She's a professional communicator. You guys might not know she was a stand-up comedian through college, and I got to see that firsthand working with her. She is hilarious and a storyteller. She was my division officer during our tour on USS Nimitz, and I want to say what we're talking about today, I saw firsthand how relentless she is about diet and exercise. And then every fitness cycle, she's trying to meet this standard that was not designed with her body type in mind. She comes from a very, very supportive and loving family, and they embrace who they are, and they're very confident women. And she's inspiring people not only through her social media channels, but every chance that she has an opportunity to. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, to talk about this issue and to educate on some change that we would like to see one day in the future when it comes to military fitness standards. Beyond that, she's an awesome cheerleader for her people. Give a shout out to MC 2 or 1. I want to make sure MC1, Hockenberger. I love seeing their social media postings and all the communications that they did in Guam. And speaking of that, they won numerous awards for excellence in our craft. And Meagan was most recently named a 2021 Federally Employed Women Military Meritorious Award recipient. Welcome, Meagan.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's early morning here in Guam, so a little bit rainy too. We're expecting a tropical storm to hit tomorrow night. So,
oh wow,
on the rain. It's rained almost every day for a month now. So,
oh gosh, yeah. In Norfolk, it rains and then stops, and it's pretty severe compared to anything I saw in San Diego or Washington State, actually. So it's kind of surprising. But thank you so much. I know it's very early, like you say, early morning there, and so appreciate you taking some time to come on this call when I asked you to, because you were the person I thought of when the article from Task and Purpose came out, which is called Inside the U.S. Military's Pervasive. I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but it's about eating disorders and what they call disordered eating. And so that's going to be the focus of our conversation. But before we dive all into that very serious stuff, I first want to say that this conversation, as with all my conversations, are not done in myself or Meagan's official capacity. This is off duty, out of uniform, and everything that we say is not representing anybody but ourselves. So just want to first put that out there to everyone. And one of the landmarks of, being a citizen is knowing when to politely and respectfully speak up as an advocate. So very, very happy that Meagan's willing to do that. But before we get into this issue, I first just want to know, where are you from? I know you're from Arkansas. And I don't have to ask you a lot of these questions, but I know other people don't know these things. And what inspired you to join the service?
I am originally from Gravette, Arkansas. So for people who don't know where Gravette is, which is the majority of the world, it's about 15 minutes outside of Bentonville, which is where Walmart started. So I always joke around, tell everybody they can thank us for Walmart. But Arkansas, beautiful state, glad to be there. Very proud Razorback fan. I joined the Navy in 2009, really just prompted by the kind of economic downfall that was happening at the time. I was going to school for sports journalism. I was going to school doing theater, doing journalism, staying busy. And all of a sudden, the newspaper that I worked for, I showed up one day and everybody had been laid off. And the only reason I still had a job is because they'd already paid for my scholarship for the semester. So that was kind of a key thing for me to be like, hey, I'm going to finish this degree and I'm not going to get a job afterwards. So I should probably figure this out. And I was in my junior year of college. The recruiting office was down the street. And my brother had joined the Army pretty soon before that, and my dad had been in the Navy, so it just kind of seemed like the natural thing to do until the economy came back up. And here I am 12 years later, still doing it. Thought I was going to be 4 years and done, and I'm still going. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and Megan did exactly what I did in terms of she's what we affectionately call a Mustang. So she did her years in the enlisted community and then became an officer. And speaking of enlisted, we do have a couple shout outs. MC1 Stanley says, "Hey" to the both of you. Hey,
Hi.
MC1, isn't that awesome? I think
Go
he's
here.
yep. I think he is at Dimphos now. I don't know if he's still there, but MC1 was one of our sailors on USS Nimitz. He was part of Carrier Strike Group 11 and a wonderful, wonderful professional. And then Vanessa Bernhard says, "Represent." So,
oh yeah, and she is actually an MC2 reservist from my hometown who is married to another MC who is active duty.
Oh, awesome.
So glad to see a bunch of MCs tuning in.
Yes. No, good stuff. They can maybe some more of our Nimitz MCs might catch this at some point. But first off, I guess the question that I have for you is when you joined the military and as you were serving, tell me a little bit about the PT standards and how some of those things affected you even early on in the military.
So I think the issue is not necessarily with like the fitness standards, like running, push-ups, sit-ups, plank, whatever. That's fine. I think it's when you lump in the height weight equivalent with that. And I knew going into the military that like, hey, I'm going to have to be in shape or I'm going to have to be a certain height and weight. But I didn't realize, I guess at the time, how hard it was going to be to maintain that height and weight. And, I think that it kind of messed with me early on because the night I left for boot camp, I remember my parents leave. I'm getting in the bus to go to Kansas City to go to the airport. And the recruiter rubbed Preparation H all over my body, put saran wrap around me and told me specifically that I was not allowed to eat or take that off until I landed in Chicago because I was 1 pound over the weight limit when I showed up. And, we go through the whole in-processing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we go through the in-processing thing, and we're at our first PRT in boot camp, and, they're height weighting everybody, and I am, again, 1 pound over, and it's just like this level of shame that comes with it, and I remember, like, I'm 19 years old, and they put us all in one line, everybody that needs to be taped, and they get the whole gym around, and I remember the RDC yelling, "Hey, everybody come watch us tape the fatties." And immediately, like 19 years old, you're already not very into your body, right? Like you're already very conscious at that age, especially as a woman. And to hear somebody say like, "Hey, come tape the fatties," it was just like such a thing that messed with my head for years. And at that moment, I was like, I will never be taped again. Like I will never do that. Like whatever it takes, kind of like the female Army officer in that Task and Purpose article where she said, "Hey, I don't care what I got to do. If I got to go to the hospital, I do not want to get taped again."
Right.
And so that just kind of like triggered this like spiral for, the last 12 years on how I view like my body image, my self-worth, my everything. And it's kind of an interesting, I guess, dynamic because I think that, hey, let's get taped is so much different for females than it is males. When males get taped, it's more of like, "Oh, I'm so jacked. Like I'm so much bigger than that." But then like a female, it's like, probably chunky if she's got to get taped. And I think that a lot of females see that, and it's a kind of a culture that we need to change moving forward.
Oh, I agree. In fact, Jennifer Cunningham, one of our Navy reservists, she's a good friend of mine. She said, and you know her as well. She came to TAD to Nimitz for a little while when she was pregnant, and she said, "Yeah, women are valued by their looks in society so much more than men," and it's true, absolutely. Like that kind of thing. It's just the fact that your RDC recruit said something like that and was able to get away with it is just absolutely ridiculous. And one of the things that the Task and Purpose article had is a slideshow, and you'll see it. And I've linked to the Task and Purpose article, by the way, in the show notes. And so I highly encourage everybody to check it out. And there is a link to a slideshow that was put together of Army women who are all in amazing shape. They work out, and none of them are within standards. And so that to me just tells me that there's absolutely an issue. Is that how you see it as well?
Oh, 100%. There is definitely an issue. And I know, I don't know how many people listening have actually ever been on the female Navy officer like Facebook page, but there are tons and tons of articles or posts on there of women sharing the same exact thing. Like, hey, I'm struggling with body image or this or that, but like, look at me, I'm over here squatting 250 pounds or running a half marathon or whatever. And I'm 100% in shape, but I'm over the weight limit and I have to get taped. And it's very much a thing that we in the community know about. But outside of the community, I don't know if people really realize how much we struggle with that height weight chart.
Absolutely. And what that does is it leads to what the article talked about, which is disordered eating. And that is, and I didn't even understand that there really aren't a lot of resources even available to people in the military if they're struggling with an eating disorder. They're just, in fact, there's a bill, I think, that's moving through Congress that's going to try to help people who are struggling with this issue. And one of the things that I really admire about you, Meagan, is that you've really taken this issue on throughout the years and showed people what you're doing. I mean, like your Instagram page just shows your workout regimen. But not only that, you're very open about showing your body. And I think that that's really inspirational. What inspired you to do that?
I think it just time. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm in my 30s now. In my 20s, I would have never shown a lot of the things that I show on Instagram now. And it's more just coming to that like age where I'm thinking like, this is who I am. I know the work that I'm putting in. I know what I'm doing. I'm happy. I don't want to have to go through these things anymore. And I think 25-year-old Meagan just didn't have that same outlet to say like, hey, who cares what society thinks? Who cares what all these people think or the weight chart or whatever thinks? Like, I'm happy in my body. I'm the strongest, the fastest, the most capable I've ever been. That should be enough. And, and also too, as much as Jennifer Cunningham, she said society puts a lot of pressure on us. I think there's also a big shift in society today versus 10, 12 years ago when I joined that there is a lot more stuff in social media with body positivity than there was 12 years ago. And so I don't feel the same need to hide the fact that I'm 13 pounds over the weight limit or hide the fact that I'm not rail thin or whatever. Like, I'm here, I'm a full grown 32-year-old woman. Like,
right. Oh, yeah. And the comments are just rolling in, by the way. I'm going to get to a couple of them here. This is obviously an issue that hits close to a lot of people. Mimi B said, literally, the thought went through my head when I had to get taped, the shame. And
100%, yes.
And that's so unfortunate. And then, Stanley, Marcus Stanley says, blanket standards should never dictate how we determine if someone's fit or not. And absolutely. And in fact, he has a lot. And then Jennifer Cunningham says, let's also not forget that women are taped at the largest part of their butt, even though it's called hips. Regs say to measure at the most protruding part of the gluteus maximus when looking from the side. Not only is that not okay for women in general, that is very biased against women of color. We are lucky to now also know that we have an abominable measurement first, but there's still a measurement of fitness. And that's a really good point about the ethnic side to this. In talking to the people that who've been affected by this, is that something that you've also heard people talk about?
Yes, absolutely. I think in a general sense, it's anybody who's got hips, right? But yes, it does affect certain groups of people more than it does others. But I think Jennifer brings up a point that really triggered me. I think in the beginning, the Navy's changed over the last 12 years. And when I first joined, it was a 3-site taping where they would tape your neck, your waist, and your hips. I have a 29.5-inch waist, but I have 42-inch hips. And I got a tiny neck, so that's not saving me anywhere. So when I joined, I knew after boot camp that, hey, if I have to get taped, I'm going to fail because of the size of my hips. And that's even if I'm in weight, I'm going to fail based off of this height weight chart. So I was having to do just ridiculous things for the first 7-8 years of my career to be underweight. My body normally sat at about like 3 to 5 pounds over weight limit. And I was running 100 miles a month, doing cardio kickboxing. I was doing all sorts of things. And then when the PRT would come, I'm drowning my body in magnesium citrate. I wasn't eating for days unless I was eating chocolate laxative bars. And in my brain, I'm thinking, I cannot be the only person that's having to do this just to avoid getting taped, because ideally, if you're 1 pound over the weight limit, you should be able to pass the tape. And that's just not how the system was laid out at the time. And I kind of remember my I guess coming to like realization moment that this is not okay was I was stationed on Theodore Roosevelt, and I had starting my second bottle of magnesium citrate of the night, and which, if you've ever taken that, is awful. And I remember I was sitting here just, head on like the armory door where it was cool, because that was the only way I could cool off, and I was hurting. My stomach was just like not okay. And I remember thinking, like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is so hard on my stomach. And then I look over, and the minute I'm thinking that, I see two guys, an MA2 and an ET3, and they're bent over getting their armory, like their armored gear on, their guard belts, their vest. And when they bend over, they're wearing Preparation H, Saran wrap, waist trainers, everything underneath their uniform. And they're about to go stand watch for 12 hours on the flight deck in the Virginia summer, so they can sweat it all out in time for us to get weighed the minute we get off watch. And in a weird way, I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm not the only one, Right. But I should have been thinking, oh, hey, I'm not the only one. What are we going to do to change this? And it kind of took me a little bit more time after that to really be like, all right, we got to make a change.
Yeah. And I mean, there's going to be people who definitely don't agree with this change as well. We have a comment in, and I want to address the people who think this is just people who can't get on a diet and can't lose weight. And this is kind of what, James here says. And I think it's a fair point for him to make. And it's what we have to encounter if we want to make changes. He says, the Army has a standard, and a standard for a long time. I was in the military for 34 years. For 25 of those years, I was taped because of body mass, but I always passed through PT test. There's a lot of people who can't pass through the military PT test. The only time this has become an issue is with fast food generation. What do you have to say to that? I
think my problem is not with the actual PT test. Fine, I'll go run the 1.5 miles. I'll plank. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I work out 6 days a week. It's fine. I'll do that. The issue is, at least with the Navy, is that we built this height weight chart 40 years ago in a post-Vietnam era. And whether it's fast food or what, our generation, we are not built like that anymore. Height, our width, how broad men are in the shoulders, how wide female are on the hips. We're just not built the way we were 40 years ago. And so to expect men or women to conform to a height and weight that was conducive 40 years ago isn't really a proper reflection of our force today.
Or was it even conducive 40 years ago? Maybe it never has. And that's the thing with a lot of issues that we find that we try to change to make better, is that things, we had people who were serving silently who were homosexual. They were always homosexual, but it just didn't bubble to the surface, and there wasn't enough of a crescendo of people who were speaking up and speaking out about it in order to make those changes. And so getting into, well, how do we fix this? And I'll just share one more story. This is Jennifer Gunningham before we get into that. She says, I was 5 months postpartum after having an 11-pound baby and within standards, admitted barely, but still was, and told I wasn't allowed to go to headquarters because I didn't look good enough in uniform. That is a problem. I agree.
I will give Jennifer another example. When I checked into my shore duty, I was an E4, and I was, I think, 6 pounds smaller than I am now. I was like 4 pounds over the weight limit. I check in and I sit down in the Master Chief's office. He was the CMC for the command and or for the airfield. And he said, all right, so how far along are you? And I said, well, in the check-in process, I just have to see you and Air Boss. And he was like, no, in your pregnancy. And I said, excuse me? He was like, well, based off of your size and the fact that you're a female here, I just assumed you were coming for your pregnancy tour. And I was like, wow, no, I'm just here, and I happen to be like, I'm here to work,
Yeah.
And everybody at the command, you see a female, which is a whole other issue, the pregnancy issue, but he saw a female with wide hips and assumed I was pregnant and then tried to put me on FEP right away until he realized that I had never failed a PRT, that I was within, height weight standards by like 2 ounces. But yeah, he was just mortified when I called him out on the fact that I was not pregnant.
Wow. And this kind of gets into Marcus's question here is he says, the question becomes, what are we basing these standards off of? And this kind of gets into, and one of the things that I never like to do is complain without offering a solution. So what my question for you is, based on, there were some ideas that were posed in the article, but I really want to get from you if you could run the Navy and be a part of it, or an advisory council, let's say, because at some point I really do feel the military will study this issue. They'll put together a task force that will look at this issue holistically. And say you were on that advisory committee or on that task force, what would be some of the suggestions that you would have?
Well, I think they have everybody's prims, right? Their record from their PRTs. So they know how tall and how big everybody really is in the military. And I think we need to take an honest effort to say, how does the force look as a whole right now? Like, what does the actual person look like now? And then make a more updated chart. I'm not saying to get rid of it entirely. I just think we need to update it, because there still does need to be somewhat of a weight limit per se in the military. We just need
especially for certain jobs,
right?
For certain duties.
I think we need to update it in a sense where we put the emphasis on being strong instead of being skinny, because I know in the past, and I'm sure it was like this for you as well, when people would do all of these crazy things to pass the PRT, they had to give us the 7-day break between weigh-ins and the physical portion of the PRT, because we were wrecking our bodies so bad to pass the weight portion that we weren't capable of doing anything physical for a week. And so that hinders your team, your command, whoever. And so if we put the emphasis on being strong and really have a height weight chart that reflects that, I think we're headed in the right direction. But I think where we really make that change, and I say this because I'm kind of as MC1 Hockenberger used to call me, the PAO for the people, as I think we put that change on the junior sailors, the chiefs, the junior officers, and we make a small change in the beginning and we let it continue to roll and gather steam. And so we have people who want to make change, have them become the CFLs, where they can create a better culture in their command, where they can tape people properly. We train our medical departments on how to notice disordered eating or body dysmorphia, because once divisions and departments take ownership of that and they make noise, then commands make noise, and that goes to TICOMs and that goes to Big Navy. And so if we can start making noise on a lower level, then that's going to eventually get to a point where other people are finally hearing it and seeing it.
And speaking of making noise, can you share with us a little bit about what you told me before the call? You had a town hall and had an opportunity to share your thoughts. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this was not intentional. It's just the CNO and his wife, Miss Gilday, they came to the island of Guam to do a normal, come look at the Guam visit commands. And
when was this?
Just a few weeks ago.
Okay, wow.
3 weeks ago. And it was the last week of July or mid-July, something like that. And the Admiral's wife, she was awesome. And she really wanted to know issues that people were having, whether it was Guam-based or Navy-based or whatever. And so she sat down with spouses, with ombudsmen, and then she made it a mission to sit down with female junior enlisted, female chiefs, and female junior officers. And so in that focus group with the other officers, I think we had about 15 or so junior officers, which is almost all the female junior officers on the island. And she asked us to go around, say who we are, what command we were with, and say what was one thing we really loved about the Navy, but one thing that we wanted to change about the Navy. And that was exactly what I brought up to her, is I think that we have this height weight chart that isn't effective. And because of that, we have male and female sailors that are struggling with issues that they might not even know it's disordered eating, because that's just the way it's always been, or they might not realize it's body dysmorphia. Because I know that I didn't. I know that I've weighed myself so many times in the last 12 years. I can stand in front of my mirror right now and tell you how much I weigh to the ounce just by looking at myself.
Wow.
Being able to have those conversations with her, when I spoke up to that, other females were like, hey, same thing. Like, I don't even have kids and this is an issue. You know, I don't have kids either. But, and then other people are like, hey, I'm expected to bounce back after baby, or this, that, and the other, or I got this birth control in my arm and I've gained 20 pounds, and really speaking candidly with her about these issues. And one of her protocol people stepped forward and said, hey, the Marines are looking at revamping their height weight chart, and the Air Force has already gotten rid of it and they're going to performance-based. And so she had kind of asked us the same things that you're asking me, like, what do we think we could do to change it? And we gave her a lot of good advice, a lot of good feedback. And I'm looking forward to seeing once she takes that feedback back with her to DC, what comes from it, or if anything comes from it.
Right. Well, I'm just so thankful that the military does these kinds of town halls, because I think that they really do care about what we think, and we are a learning organization. And as we've seen with so many other issues, especially, you know, I've served for the last 25 years, and I can't even tell you how many issues I have seen get better over time, whether it be issues dealing with mental health, whether it be the transgender issue. There's been a lot of issues that I think over time we learn, and we do evolve as an organization. And I do believe that this will be, at least I have hope that this will be another issue that I think, as we learn more, and we talk to dietitians and we talk to nutritionists, and that's another question for you, is when you've talked to people that are in the nutrition or the dietitian industry, what do they tell you about this issue? Have you had any of those kinds of conversations?
Not really. I think most of them stick like just other service members that I know that might happen to be a nutritionist or dietitian. But I think just like the female Army officer had stated, that it's hard to really know the extent of it or know how to serve service members better, because there's no data on it.
Right.
A lot of people aren't going to go to a dietitian or nutritionist or mental health if they think it's going to affect their career or getting kicked out. Or a lot of people don't recognize they have an issue because it's just everybody's doing it. Like, I didn't think that I had an issue when I was pumping laxatives, because we were sharing them on the, standing on the couch, eating pieces of chocolate laxative together. Like, I didn't think it was an issue because everybody was doing it, and I had been doing it since day one. And it really took kind of a two-part approach for me to really realize that, hey, this is not okay and I need to get better. And that was commissioning, because right about the same time that I commissioned is when the Navy switched to the single site taping. And the single site taping for a female, you can have a waist of 35.5 inches. And I'm at like 30.5. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to keep killing my stomach when I know I can pass the tape now, and I'll be okay. But then I think me as an officer, I've really taken this approach that I want to be the officer that I needed when I was an E4. And so I knew that I couldn't keep doing those things and be the leader that I wanted to be if I was doing that. And so for me, it's always been important to look at these junior sailors and say, hey, I see you, I'm there with you, I'm struggling with you, and we're going to get through it. But the only way we get through it is to talk about it and to make noise and make sure that people know that this is an issue. And so instead of doing all these things to, mess with your health, like, let's focus on getting strong and let's do PT together, do whatever we have to do. But I think you might remember, and Stanley, he's on here, MC1, might remember how heated I was about this on deployment. Remember, we were walking 30,000 something steps a day doing DV tours. We were running, my state roommate was doing Ironman, so I was running with her every day. And I had gotten down to where I was only 2 pounds over the weight limit. And it was one of the first PRTs where they were doing single site taping. And I go to the hangar bay to get taped, and this chief, who was the CFL, he's taping me in the wrong spot. And I told him, I'm literally built like an hourglass. Like, it's easy to see where the top of my hip bone is. He's wanting to measure me like below my belly button, which was like a 3-inch difference. And I said, don't do that. That's not the right spot. He's like, well, you pass either way. And I said, but that's not the point. Like, the next person that might not be passing on, like, you need to be taping people in the accurate position. And he had enough nerve to turn around and said, ma'am, maybe if you spent more time working out the other 364 days a year, you wouldn't have to worry about it on this one day.
Oh, and my God.
Are you serious? I work out every single day.
He had no business talking to you that way. Oh my God.
And so this creates even more of this like shame spiral where you're like, well, I don't want to have to get tapes again. I don't want to have to do this and that. And then I came back from deployment and I come to Guam, and Guam is a very physical island in the sense, you have 90-degree weather every day. So everybody's out in a pre-COVID world. They're doing 5Ks and 10Ks every single weekend. And so, I'm running half marathons here, and I'm doing CrossFit and HIIT workouts, and I'm strong and I'm capable. And then I realized I'm going to have to cough up so much of this like strength and this capability to shrink myself to fit this standard. And I just got to a point where I was happy in my personal life and in my professional life that I didn't want to keep destroying my mental health and my own body image, because I really got to thinking like, hey, I love the Navy. I love what it's given me, the opportunities and the capabilities. But at what cost does that come? My own self-worth, my own self-image, and I just got to a point where I said, hey, I'm going to just accept this shame that comes with being taped. And instead of calling it shame, I'm going to find a way to embrace it. I'm going to let people know it's okay. And we're just going to find a way to change it.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's what today is about. It's about lifting that shame and lifting that stigma, and know that this is not just something that happens in the military. This is my birth aunt, Jerry Schmidt. And she says, when I was in nursing school, I was weighed every week and discouraged if I gained any pounds. I know it is not the military, but it was the same shame. And so we have to do our part to lift the shame, especially around weight. I don't really understand why women are judged more harshly for their looks and for their weight than men are. And either way, whether it's a man or a woman, they shouldn't be judged about something like weight. It should be about your character and about, can you do the job and can you carry out the mission? Are you a good teammate? So I know there are ways that we can work together to make this a fair system. And I think my next question for you is what gives you the motivation to do this? Like, what is it about you and about your upbringing that gave you the courage to take something that was so shameful for so many years for you and really be a voice for change?
I think a lot of it is I have a family that we are just very open and communicative. Like I can call my sister right now and be like, hey, this is what I'm going through. And she's going to speak some reason into me, or my parents are very, forward thinking. And I just never grew up thinking that I was any less than because of my size or because of my weight, no matter how big or how small I was. And so to join the military and kind of have this different look at my body and my height and my weight, I was thinking like, hey, that's not how I was raised. Like, and not to sound conceited, but my parents raised me to be like, hey, I'm awesome. And in this community now where like you're, you can be the sailor of the year, the junior PAO of the year. You can win all of these awards. You can do all of these things, but none of that matters if you fail this height weight chart. And so you start to lump your entire self-worth around that. And really just having a lot of conversations, I think specifically with friends that were going through the same thing, or my sister, who is a research fellow at the Clinton School of Business in Little Rock, Arkansas, and looking at the research that she sees and really just having those candid conversations. And I think that's how you really start to become an advocate, is when you not only know how it affects you, but when you start to listen to how it affects others. And I think being a Divo and seeing how that affected other sailors really, spoke to me. But it also spoke to me. I know I talk a lot about MC1 Hockenberger, but working with just one MC, you start to get to know one MC very well, and watching her physical experience in the Navy, and watching her be a CFL and still having to fight to be in this weight standard, but she's supposed to be representing the command as their top CFL, and she's fighting to stay under this arbitrary weight limit and doing all the same crazy things that I'm doing, and so that's when it kind of became hey, I'm seeing more and more things on Facebook where people, on the female officer page or on my own timeline, where people are saying, hey, I'm struggling, I'm doing this, this, and this. And that's when I'm like, you know what? If I show this picture of me looking thick on the beach, that's what somebody else know it's okay to be thick on the beach, And in a weird way, it makes me feel better too. If I get that picture or whatever out there, I'm no longer sitting in front of my mirror nitpicking the 100 things I don't like about myself. I'm putting it out there, and then I'm thinking, all right, that wasn't perceived as bad as I thought it was going to be. It starts to make you feel better, and it builds up that self-confidence that you broke down for the last 10 to 12 years. And, I think, living on an island that's tropical and you're tan and everything looks better tan. And, it's really helped. And it's not to say that I'm perfect or, better now mentally. It's just leaps and bounds, from what I was doing when I was enlisted. And I think a lot of that is just because I have people to advocate for now. And it's not just me, I'm trying to be the person that I needed. And I think that's a big thing to take on. And, I'm willing to do that if that means it's going to help somebody else. But we don't know that until we start talking and we get data and we get all of this information that's going to actually set a precedence for the Navy or the DoD to do some sort of research on, because right now there's no data because nobody talks about it because of shame, like we talked about.
It's a shame,
So
yeah.
if we start getting rid of that shame and openly talking about our experiences, then we create a research database for them to actually make change off of.
And that's the first step, Meagan. I mean, like, there's a picture of you on your Instagram. I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing your Instagram handle, but it was so good. It was just you on a beach, you're in your bathing suit and you're kind of sitting back and you're just looking like I'm on top of the world right now. And I just love that.
No, yeah, it's fine. My Instagram's fine. Meagan making moves, my sister gave me that name, so I'm proud of that. She is an absolute queen. I love her. But yeah, I think everybody's got their own, body image or self-worth, issues and stuff. And I think I've really, when I turned 30 a couple years ago, it was me saying to myself, like, hey, I don't want to be thinking of myself the same way I did the last 10 years. Like, I want to have a better relationship with myself. And part of doing that is being okay with who I am physically, regardless of what the military says. And that's not to say that, like, hey, let's all go get fat and sit around and eat ice cream at the table.
Right.
Because I do indulge in ice cream and I lay on the couch a lot, but I also get up at 5 o'clock every single morning and work out 6 days a week. So if I'm going through all of this, I shouldn't have to also struggle to make a height weight chart if I'm working out like that 24/7.
Yeah. And MC1 Stanley has a couple other ideas as well, get rid of the height and weight standards and focus solely on the physical aspect. If you can do the physical requirements, so be it. And, and then he has another point here that I hadn't thought about. This is akin to the same argument I have about men and beards, especially when it comes to Black men. The beard issue. Yeah. That's another issue.
One thing when he says, like, hey, let's make this about the physical aspect. One thing that people, and less females, because we bitch about it all the time, right? is that this height weight chart is also how they build our uniforms. And so if you are like me, you ain't gonna find a uniform that fits. And if you do, like right now, I have to buy uniforms that are 2 to 3 sizes bigger and then have them personally tailored down to fit my hips. Because if I buy them to fit my waist, they're this big on the hips or however, and it's not, because they're building everything based off of this height weight chart, and women are going through all of this crazy stuff to fit in these uniforms. And I saw this thread where women were talking about, hey, I have to cut off my white t-shirt and make it a crop top because I can't fit it into my tucked in pants, or my pants are great, but I can't sit down in them, or all of these issues. And it's not because they're chunky. It's because we can't, find pants that fit, because they don't make them that way, because they're making them based off a standard they think we should be, but that's just not how we are built anymore. So
right.
I think the Navy's trying, right? And it's a big organization, and it's a big organization to make change in, because there's a lot of steps and a lot of policy. And in the last 12 years, we've went from 3-site taping to single-site taping, which was a great thing for many people. And we've went from sit-ups to planks, but nobody was asking to get rid of planks or to get rid of sit-ups, but whatever. So they're trying. I just don't think that we're focusing our efforts on the actual issue at hand, which is this height weight chart. It's not, oh, my back hurts from sit-ups, because my back hurts more from planks. They're trying to make changes to the fitness program. Hey, we got new uniforms that nobody asked for, but we're not paying attention to the actual issue at hand. And that's how, because if I weigh a certain weight and then you cut my uniform for a weight that I'm not, then I don't feel confident in this uniform either, and
right.
It creates more and more issues. And It's easy to say that it's just the height weight chart, but that filters into so many other aspects of your life and your career. And to look at somebody, and you know this from Nimitz, to look at people and to say, hey, you're my number one EP, you're my sailor of the year, you're this, this, and this, but you're about to crap all of that away if you don't lose 3 pounds. And that starts to get people's self-worth, that starts to dig at somebody. And then you say, hey, I know I've done 50 other great things, but the only thing that matters about me is this number on the scale. And it's a really hard mindset to get around that number and say, hey, I'm so much more than that.
Yeah. And we are so much more than that number. And I think that what you're doing is just so inspirational and outstanding. And you're giving a voice to people who I know feel voiceless. And this was a good advocacy week for Stories of Service. I had a guest on earlier this week who makes positive change in the world of animal advocacy, which is another very large organizations that she's having to work with. And that's the thing, is that we both know that this is not something that's going to change today or tomorrow, or maybe even in the next year or so. But if we can make incremental steps, if we can maybe push for a study, if we can push to get more data and for them to look at this issue more intently, if we can get more people who have been affected by this issue willing to talk about this issue on social media, then I think that we're really getting into an area where we all can make a difference and we all can be of service and make positive change. So I just want to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about any of this. And we have a few other comments in here, and I'll just show them real quick. Jennifer Cunningham, she says the sit-ups were horrible for many of us after giving birth, but no issues before. So that's a good point too, is that, is giving women enough time after they've given birth, not to go right back into sit-ups. And so there are definitely areas that we can make better. And my friend, this is my friend Brian. He says hello to you. He's actually my husband's best friend. He's on YouTube. And is there anything else that I didn't cover when it comes to this issue that you want to put out to people or have them keep in mind? I don't know if I've covered down on everything when it comes to this, because I'm not personally affected by it, but I've known many people who were. And when I said, when I saw how much you struggled with this issue, the 2 years we served together on Nimitz, that's what really made me think like this is such an issue that needs an overhaul, because I'm seeing this girl work out every single day. I'm seeing how well she eats. I mean, we live together. I saw the way that you live your life. And that was what convinced me that there definitely needs to be a change when it comes to this problem.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would really add is that we need to take steps as individuals, right? So if you see somebody struggling, talk to them. If you need to help somebody by working out with them, do it, right? But also we need to work on like command culture. I know like my command, we did mock BCAs a few weeks ago, and our CFL, nice guy, great guy. But when this other chief steps on the scale, he goes, Jesus. And I'm thinking, he's joking with this guy, but please don't say that when I step on it next. And so I think it's a little more careful in our words, careful in our actions, and just realizing that it's not a one-size-fits-all program. It's not a one-size-fits-all force or world or society or social media, and just really taking that time to get to know the people you're serving with or the people that are really struggling, and kind of, getting them to reach for help if they need it, or telling them like, hey man, like you don't need to make weight. Like, let's just get tape. Let's make tape not a shameful thing. And I think that really starts at the individual basis, at the divisional and department head basis. And if we start to make change individually, then that's really going to add up to something that the big Navy is going to have to really take, hear of, basically.
I agree. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to this last, 45 minutes just flew by, which I knew it would. And I know that what you're saying today is going to impact positively a lot of people. Just so everyone knows, they can find you, like you said, Meagan Making Moves, MEAGAN. at Instagram. You're also on LinkedIn. I will tag you as well on Facebook. So that's all we have for tonight, everybody. I do want to, Meagan, if you'll just hang out for a second, I'll join you backstage in just a minute. I'm going to go to solo layout. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And our next podcast is going to be this Wednesday. I'm having Jennifer Klein. She is the Miss DeWalt lady. She does fix-it videos on YouTube and on TikTok and on LinkedIn, actually. And I am just so over the moon happy she has agreed to talk with me. And I'm sure it's just going to be so inspirational. You guys know my husband is a fix-it guy. And the fact that, she has taken this mission on and just does all these how-to videos, it's so inspirational and getting her story. Fix-it videos on. Yes. And hey, I'm going to sign off for now, but have a wonderful evening and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.